The first time Leah Monroe sat at my dining room table, she cried without making a sound. Not the kind of crying that asks to be noticed. She kept her chin down, read every line of the month-to-month lease twice, and wiped one tear with the side of her thumb, as if it were an inconvenience. Then she set down the pen, looked at me with red-rimmed eyes, and said, "Before I move in, I need you to promise me one thing." I should have asked why she was crying. Instead, I said, "What do you need? If anyone comes here to take my things, you don't give them anything. Not a suitcase, not a box, not a coat. I don't care if they have paperwork. I don't care if they say I sent them, unless I'm standing here beside you and I tell you in person that I chose it. Nothing leaves this house." I looked at the 2 damp spots on the lease where her tears had landed. "Okay," I said. "I promise." At the time, I thought the promise was about possessions. I was wrong. It was about whether Leah still belonged to herself. If you've ever watched someone try to rebuild a life one ordinary decision at a time, stay with me. Sometimes the most important promises are the ones that sound strange before you know the story behind them. My name is Noah Bennett. I was 30 years old then, and I worked as a residential plans examiner for the city of Greensboro, North Carolina. Most days, people brought me drawings of houses they wanted to build, and I told them whether the structure made sense before concrete got poured and walls went up. I liked work with rules. A beam was either properly supported or it wasn't. A stairway either met code or it didn't. People were harder. I had been single for almost 2 years after an engagement that ended quietly, which was worse in some ways than ending loudly. My ex, Dana, once told me I had a gift for giving people space until the space became a wall. She wasn't entirely wrong. I hated pushing. I hated scenes. I told myself that made me respectful. The little brick house I owned had 3 bedrooms, 1 mortgage, and a roof that had started making expensive noises every time it rained. When the insurance premium jumped and my old Honda finally needed a transmission, I posted an ad for a roommate. Leah replied the next morning. She was 26, 4 years younger than me, and worked as an event coordinator for a small botanical garden on the edge of town. Her message was short, professional, and oddly specific. She asked whether the bedroom door had its own lock, whether packages were left on the porch, and whether I ever gave spare keys to family members. I told her no. She asked to see the room that evening. When she arrived, she wore black slacks, flat shoes, and a cream sweater under a navy raincoat. She looked composed until you noticed her hands. One was wrapped around the strap of her purse so tightly that her fingertips had gone pale. She liked the room immediately. It faced the backyard, had 2 windows, and came with a narrow closet that smelled faintly of cedar because the previous owner had lined it decades ago. I showed her the bathroom, the kitchen, the laundry room, and the detached garage I mostly used to store things I was pretending I would someday repair. She smiled exactly twice. The second smile came when I told her she could move the furniture however she wanted. "You mean that?" she asked. "Why wouldn't I?" She looked at the bed, then back at me. No reason. That should have been another question. I didn't ask it. We returned to the dining room. She read the lease. She cried. She made me promise that no one could remove her belongings unless she stood beside me and said she had chosen it. Then, she signed. By the 3rd week, we ate dinner together more often than not. Nothing romantic happened. Not then. What happened first was trust, and trust is less cinematic. It looks like someone leaving their laptop on the kitchen table while they take a shower. It looks like a bedroom door that stops being locked during dinner. It looks like groceries becoming ours instead of mine and yours. 2 days later, the promise got tested. It was a Tuesday. I had taken a half-day because an electrician was supposed to check the panel in the garage. Around 11:15, a box truck backed into the driveway. I assumed it was the electrician until two men in matching gray shirts climbed out. One carried a clipboard. "Mr. Bennett?" "Yes. We're here for Leah Monroe's household pickup." Everything inside me went still. "What household pickup?" The man checked the sheet. "Bedroom furniture, personal boxes, clothing, documents, full residential removal." "No." He blinked. "Sorry? No one scheduled that with me." He turned the clipboard so I could see a printed work order. Leah's name was on it. My address was on it. Under authorization, there was a digital signature that looked like hers. "Ms. Monroe confirmed yesterday," he said. "We've got a 2-man crew and a 4-hour window." I remembered the dining room table. I remembered the tears she had tried to hide. "Unless I'm standing here beside you and I tell you in person that I chose it, nothing leaves this house. You're not taking anything." The mover looked annoyed now, but not aggressive. "Sir, I understand, but we have a signed authorization, and you have a locked front door. Can you call her?" "I can." I stepped inside and locked the door behind me. My hands were shaking a little when I called. Leah answered on the second ring. "Noah? Are you at work?" "Yes." "Why?" "There's a moving truck in the driveway." Silence, not confusion. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. "Do not let them inside." "I'm not. Not show them anything. Don't confirm what room is mine. Don't—" "Leah." She stopped. I remember the promise. Another silence. This one sounded different. "Okay," she whispered. "Did you schedule movers?" "No. Do you want me to send them away?" "Yes." "Done." "Wait." Her voice tightened. "Ask what company. Take a photo of the truck if you can do it from inside. Don't argue with them." "I can do that. I'm leaving work. You don't have to come back if you don't want to. I want to." That mattered too. She arrived 23 minutes later, still wearing her botanical garden name badge. The movers were sitting in their cab because their dispatcher had told them to wait while the authorization was reviewed. Leah got out of her car, looked at the truck, and went pale. I met her on the porch. She didn't look at me. "Who booked them?" I asked quietly. "My brother." I had expected ex-boyfriend, maybe an ex-husband. I had not expected brother. Leah walked to the truck. I stayed on the porch because she hadn't asked me to come with her. The driver rolled down the window. "Ms. Monroe?" "Yes." "We're sorry about the confusion." "It isn't confusion. I did not authorize this." He showed her the work order. She stared at it. "That's not my signature." The second mover leaned over from the passenger seat. "We can cancel the job." "Please do." She took a picture of the form and asked for the dispatcher's number. Her voice stayed controlled until the truck disappeared around the corner. Then she turned toward the house. Her face collapsed. I had never seen someone move from composed to devastated that quickly. 1 second she was standing upright. The next, she was sitting on the porch step with both hands over her mouth. I sat 2 steps away, not touching, not talking. After a minute, she lowered her hands. "I knew he'd try something," she said. "I just didn't think it would be this fast." "Your brother?" She nodded. "Grant." I waited. Leah looked at me, and there was anger in her eyes now, mostly at herself. "You should ask. That surprised me." "Ask what?" "Why I was crying the night I signed the lease." "So I did." "Why were you crying?" She looked out at the empty driveway. "Because the last time I moved somewhere my family didn't approve of, they moved me back." The sentence sat between us. What does that mean? It means I was 25 years old, paying my own rent, and my father still had a spare key because he said families should have spare keys. My cousin Emily knew where the extra was. Grant convinced her there was an emergency. While I was at work, he and 2 employees from our family company packed half my apartment and took it to my father's house. I stared at her. Without asking you? They said they were helping. That's not helping. I know that now. You didn't know then. I knew it felt wrong. I just didn't know I was allowed to call it wrong. That was the first time I understood the scale of what she had left. Leah's family owned Monroe House Events, a wedding and corporate event company with 3 venues across the Piedmont. Her father, Richard, had started it with Leah's mother when Leah was a child. By the time Leah finished college, the company employed more than 70 people. Her older brother Grant ran finance. Leah ran operations. From the outside, it was the kind of family business people put in magazines. Inside, according to Leah, decisions had always been presented as family obligations. What happened this year? She rubbed her palms together. Grant asked me to sign a new set of loan guarantees. For the company? Yes. He said the expansion had gone over budget, but it was temporary. I asked to see the books. And? He got angry. Because you asked? Because I didn't trust him. That sounds like a reason to ask harder. A humorless smile touched her mouth. That's what my mother would have said. She told me she had started reviewing old company emails and payment records after hours. She found vendor debts she didn't recognize, short-term loans she had never approved, and 2 contracts with her electronic signature attached to them. She had not signed either one. That was when she called a lawyer, Monica Chen, a business litigation attorney who later became the calmest voice in every difficult room. That was also when everything changed. Grant told their father she was overreacting. Their father said the company was under pressure and families had to protect each other. Grant said the signatures were administrative, not criminal. He insisted Leah had given broad approval in meetings she no longer remembered correctly. I started wondering if he was right, she said. You remembered signing them? No. Then why would you think he was right? Because he sounded certain. There are answers that tell you more than the speaker intends. That was one of them. Leah refused to sign the new guarantees and resigned from the family company. 3 days later, Grant and 2 employees emptied her apartment. She went to her father's house, found her clothes stacked in her childhood bedroom, and discovered that everyone there had decided she was having a crisis. I screamed, she said, which did not help my case. You had a right to be angry, I know. But when everyone in a room is looking at you like your anger proves their point, you start trying to look calm instead of asking whether the point makes any sense. She moved out again, this time to a short-term rental. She did not give her family the address. Her cousin Emily found out anyway. Then the calls started. Not threats, requests, invitations to lunch, messages about her father's blood pressure, employees asking whether their jobs were safe, an aunt telling her that your mother would hate this. Finally, 4 days before she answered my roommate ad, Leah learned the short-term rental would not renew because the owner was selling the unit. That was the day I messaged you, she said. And the crying? She looked embarrassed. I had just gotten a voicemail from my dad. He said Grant was sending people to help me move home because I was making decisions from emotion. I listened to it in your driveway before I came inside. I felt something hot and immediate rise in my chest. Anger is easy. Useful anger is harder. I took a breath. What do you want to do now? Leah looked at me. It was a simple question. But she stared at it like I had put an unfamiliar object in her hands. I want to call my lawyer. Okay. And the moving company. I want a copy of everything Grant sent them. Okay? And I want to stay here. I nodded. Then you stay. Her eyes filled again. This time I asked, do you want me to sit here? Yes. So I did. By December, I was in trouble. Not because Leah was beautiful, though she was. She had dark auburn hair that escaped every clip she put it in, and green-brown eyes that looked more gold when she was angry. But attraction was the least interesting thing happening. I was in trouble because I knew how she took her coffee, because I could tell the difference between her work silence and her worried silence, because she had started texting me pictures of absurd wedding decorations from the garden with captions like, "This centerpiece has committed a crime." Because every time I heard her car pull into the driveway, some part of me relaxed. I did not say any of that. At first, that restraint was appropriate. Later, some of it was fear. I was still good at turning care into silence. Leah noticed. One Friday night, we were hanging paper stars in the living room because she said the house looked emotionally beige. "You're doing it again," she said from the ladder. "Doing what? Thinking a whole paragraph and saying none of it. That is an unfair accusation. You have a paragraph face. What does a paragraph face look like?" "Like that." She pointed at me. I laughed. Then she didn't. "What were you thinking?" I looked up at her. She was standing on the third rung, one hand holding a paper star, waiting. I could have lied. I almost did. "I was thinking I'm glad you moved in." Her expression softened. That was only one sentence. The rest is under review. City employee, occupational hazard. She climbed down. For a second we were standing too close, not touching, close enough to notice. Then her phone rang. She looked at the screen and all the warmth left her face. "Dad, do you want help or company?" She swallowed. "Neither. I think I want to answer." I stepped into the kitchen. She took the call in the living room. I tried not to listen. I failed. Her father's voice was low enough that I couldn't hear the words, only the rhythm. Leah mostly said no. "No, I'm not coming home. No, I'm not meeting Grant alone. No, I'm not signing anything. No, I am not trying to destroy the company." Then silence. A long silence. Leah said, "Dad, I loved Mom too." I stopped pretending not to hear. When she came into the kitchen 10 minutes later, her eyes were wet. I hated the fact that I recognized that look now. "What happened?" "He wants to come here." "Here?" "He says he wants to talk without Grant." "Do you want him here?" She leaned against the counter. "I don't know." "Then don't decide tonight. He says the bank deadline is Monday. That sounds like his deadline." She gave me a tired look. "You've been talking to Monica too much. Monica is terrifying. She likes you. She thinks I have good document retention habits. For Monica, that is affection." Leah laughed through her tears. Then she surprised me. "I want him to come." I nodded. "Okay. You're not going to tell me it's a bad idea." "Do you think it's a bad idea?" "I think it might hurt." "That's different." She stared at me. "You make that sound simple. It's not simple. It's just yours." Her father came Sunday afternoon. Richard Monroe looked nothing like the villain I had built in my head. That unsettled me. He was 63, neatly dressed, tired around the eyes, and carrying a grocery store pie in a plastic container. People should not bring pie to difficult conversations. It makes the whole thing confusing. Leah met him on the porch. I stayed inside until she called my name. "This is Noah," she said. Richard shook my hand. "I've heard about you. I had no idea whether that was good. Likewise." He looked toward the hallway, toward Leah's room. I noticed. Leah noticed me noticing. Then she said, "We're sitting in the dining room." "Not my room. Not the living room. The dining room. The place where she had made the promise." Richard set the pie on the table and looked at his daughter. "You look thin." Leah's shoulders tightened. "No," he blinked. "No, we're not starting with my body." For a second, I saw the old family pattern try to reassemble itself around them. Then Richard sat down. All right. That was the first small surprise. The second came 20 minutes later. Richard genuinely did not know about the forged contracts. At least I believed he didn't. Leah showed him copies from the blue trunk. His face changed as he read. These were approved in the September meeting. I wasn't at the September meeting. You called in. I was at the hospital with Denise's husband after he collapsed during the Orchid fundraiser. I have time-stamped messages. Richard looked at the signature block. "Grant told me you authorized these electronically. I didn't." He rubbed his forehead. The room went quiet. Then he did something that made Leah flinch harder than if he had yelled. He defended Grant. He may have thought he had authority. Leah stood up. "No." "Leah." "No. That is exactly what you do. You take the thing that happened and replace it with the nicest possible reason he might have done it." Richard's mouth tightened. "We are talking about your brother. I know who we're talking about. The company employs 73 people, and my name is on debt I did not approve. If this goes public—" "Dad," her voice broke. He stopped. Leah pressed both palms against the table. "This is why I left." Richard looked stricken. She continued. "Not because I wanted the company to fail. Not because I stopped loving you. Not because I forgot what Mom built. I left because every time Grant crossed a line, you made the line move." Richard said nothing. Leah's eyes filled. "Do you know what he did when I moved out? I know he tried to help you." "No. He emptied my apartment." Richard looked at me as if I might explain. I didn't. Leah said, "And 2 days ago he sent movers here with a fake authorization. That broke something." Richard's face drained. "He what?" Leah showed him the photograph. Richard stared at it for a long time. Then he looked toward me. "Did they come inside?" "No." "Why not?" Leah answered before I could. "Because I asked Noah not to let anyone take my things unless I was here to say I chose it." Richard looked at his daughter. Then at the 2 tear marks still faintly visible on the copy of the lease I had stored in a folder. I watched shame arrive on an older man's face. It did not make everything right, but it was real. When he left, he did not ask Leah to come home. He did not take the pie. We ate it for dinner. 2 days later, Richard called Leah and told her he had hired an outside accountant. The white SUV appeared again the following week. Same model. Different driver. It idled across the street for almost 40 minutes. I took pictures from behind the curtain. The next day, a man I didn't recognize walked past the house twice. Then Leah got an email from a former Monroe House employee asking whether she had taken proprietary financial records. The pattern scared me. Fear makes action feel noble. That is one of its more dangerous qualities. Without telling Leah, I called a private investigator a co-worker's brother had used during a custody dispute. I asked him what it would cost to identify who owned the SUV and whether Grant had hired anyone to watch the house. I did not authorize an investigation. I told myself I was only gathering information. 2 days later, the investigator emailed an invoice for a preliminary vehicle trace and a note saying the SUV was registered to a security contractor that had done work for Monroe House events. Leah saw the email on my laptop. Not because she snooped, because I had left it open on the kitchen table while I took a phone call. When I came back, she was standing beside the screen. Her face had gone still. "What is this?" I knew immediately. I can explain. "That sentence has never made anything better. You're right. Did you hire someone to investigate my family?" "I called someone. I asked about the car. Without telling me." "Yes." She stepped back. I felt every inch of the room between us. I was worried. "I know. I wasn't trying to manage me?" The word landed hard. I closed my mouth. Leah's eyes filled, but this time she looked angry before she looked hurt. "I asked you for one thing when I came here. I know. No, you remember the words. I'm not sure you understood the thing." I said nothing. She pointed toward the hallway. "I asked you to make sure nobody moved my life around without me. That includes people trying to help. I didn't touch your things. You made a decision about my problem and put it in motion without asking me." She was right. I hated that she was right. Not because I wanted to win, because I had spent 2 months being proud of the fact that I was different from the people who ignored her choices. And in one frightened afternoon, I had decided my fear justified skipping her consent. "I'm sorry," I said. She wiped at her face. "I need space." There it was. The word I had always treated as permission to disappear. "This time?" I asked. "Do you want me to leave the house for a while? Or just leave you alone?" She looked surprised. "Just leave me alone." Okay. I went to the garage. I did not text. I did not explain again. I did not call Monica. I did not call the investigator. I sat on an upside-down paint bucket staring at the half-finished bookshelf and understood something Dana had tried to tell me years earlier. Avoiding control and avoiding conversation are not the same thing. Sometimes asking is respect. Sometimes silence is just another way to protect yourself from hearing no. Leah barely spoke to me for 3 days. She was civil. That was worse than anger. On the 4th night, I put an envelope on the kitchen table. Inside was the investigator's invoice, the email, and a printed confirmation that I had canceled any further work. I wrote one sentence on this front. "I was scared, and I made your choice for you anyway." "I'm sorry." Then I went upstairs. The next morning, the envelope was gone. Nothing changed immediately. That mattered. Real apologies are not vending machines. You do not insert the correct words and receive forgiveness. A week passed, then 2. We still shared the kitchen, but not dinner. We still said good morning, but not much else. The distance hurt. I let it. Meanwhile, Leah kept moving forward. She met Monica. She gave the vehicle information to her lawyer on her own. She asked the botanical garden to document the email from the former employee. Richard's outside accountant found enough irregularities that the company's bank froze a pending refinance until questions could be answered. Grant stopped calling me. Then, in mid-January, Leah came home carrying takeout from the Thai place we both liked. She set one container in front of me. "Peace offering?" I asked. "No." "Okay, it's dinner." "Also okay." We ate in the quiet. Halfway through, she said, "I was too hard on you. I put down my fork." "No." She frowned. "No? You were exactly as hard on me as you needed to be. That sounds rehearsed. I had 2 weeks." Her mouth twitched. I continued, "I don't want you to make what I did smaller so I can feel better." She looked at me for a long moment. "Monica used the vehicle information." "I know. How?" "You just told me." That got a real smile. "She sent a preservation letter to the contractor. Grant hired them to verify company property location." That sounds legal enough to be creepy. That was Monica's assessment, with more expensive words. I nodded. Leah pushed rice around her container. "I'm still angry you did it without me. You should be. But I know why you did. That doesn't make it okay. No. We sat with that. Then she said, I missed talking to you. The sentence hit me harder than any confession could have. I missed talking to you too. She looked down. I also think we need rules. Good. If you're worried about something involving me, you ask me before you act unless there is an actual emergency. Agreed. If I say I need space, you ask what that means instead of assuming. I smiled a little. I learned that one. And if either of us starts having feelings that make the roommate situation complicated. She stopped. My heart did something inconvenient. What happens then? I asked. We tell the truth before it turns into another kind of secret. I met her eyes. That sounds dangerous. It sounds adult. Worse. She laughed. The room felt like ours again. Not the way it had before. Better. Because trust rebuilt after a mistake is different from trust that has never been tested. It has visible seams. You know where it tore. You know what it cost to repair. We did not talk about our feelings that night. We lasted 12 days. The Botanical Garden held a Winter Lights fundraiser at the end of January. Leah had spent 6 weeks planning it. She claimed she did not care whether I came. She asked me 4 times whether I had bought a ticket. I bought a ticket. The event was beautiful in a way only things assembled under pressure can be. Thousands of white lights wrapped the bare trees. Glass lanterns lined the paths. A jazz trio played under a heated tent. Leah moved through the crowd with a radio clipped to her dress, solving problems before most guests knew they existed. I watched her work and saw the version of her that had been hidden under family crisis. Confident, funny, decisive. A donor tried to move a reserved table. Leah smiled and said no. A caterer panicked about a delayed truck. Leah found a solution. A board member changed the speaking order. Leah changed it back. No apology, no trembling. Near the end of the night, she found me beside the greenhouse. You stayed. You invited me. I said you could come. You asked about my ticket 4 times. Administrative follow-up. Very professional. She looked tired and happy. Dance with me. I stared at her. There's no dance floor, there's music. That is not the same thing. Noah. I held out my hand. She took it. We danced badly beside a greenhouse, while donors in expensive coats walked around us pretending not to notice. Leah put one hand on my shoulder. I'm about to make the roommate situation complicated, she said. Good. That's all you have? I had a whole paragraph. You interrupted it. She smiled. Then she looked serious. I like you. I like you too. I don't want gratitude confused with love. Neither do I. I don't want you to think being protective is the same thing as being my partner. I learned that one too. And I don't want this house to become another place I'm afraid to leave because leaving would mean hurting someone. That one hurt. I nodded. So we don't make the house the reason. What does that mean? It means if we try this, you are free to change your mind. You can move out someday and still be with me. You can stay and decide we're better as friends. The lease and the relationship are separate. Leah stared at me. Then she leaned forward and kissed me. It was not dramatic. No fireworks, no audience, just a warm, careful kiss under winter lights. When she pulled back, she whispered, "That was a very Noah answer. I hope that's good. It's getting better." The major confrontation with her family happened 6 weeks later. Not at our house. That was Leah's choice. Monica arranged a formal mediation in a conference center downtown. Richard agreed to attend. Grant came with his own attorney. The company's outside accountant brought a report thick enough to stop a door. Leah asked me to drive her. In the parking deck, she sat with both hands wrapped around a paper cup. They were shaking. Not like the night she signed the lease. Less, but enough. I looked at her. Help or company? Company. So I stayed quiet. After a minute, she said, "Ask me the question." What question? The one from the promise. I understood. Did you choose this? She closed her eyes, then opened them. Yes, we went inside. I did not attend the mediation session itself. I sat in the lobby with bad coffee for 4 hours. At 11:15, Leah texted, "Still here." At 12:40, Grant is blaming software. At 1:10, Monica just asked him to explain why software emailed him from his own account. At 1:20, "I may love her," I replied, "Reasonable." At 2:05, Leah walked out. Her face was pale. I stood. What happened? She held up one finger. Elevator first. We rode down in silence. Outside, sunlight hit the sidewalk. Leah inhaled like she had been underwater. Then she started laughing. Not happy laughter exactly. Release. What happened? I asked again. Grant signed my name. I did not react. She needed the sentence to be hers. He admitted it? Not in those words. He said he had applied my standing approval to urgent documents because I was unavailable. That sounds like admitting it with a tie on. That is almost exactly what Monica said. I smiled. Leah's eyes filled. And Dad heard him. That was the part that mattered most. Richard had spent months telling himself there had been misunderstandings. Mediation took that option away. Grant had used Leah's credentials to approve 2 vendor guarantees and a short-term line of credit after she had begun questioning the company's finances. He had also arranged the moving truck, not because her belongings belonged to the company, but because he believed bringing her back to the family house would pressure her into signing the refinance. The security contractor had been hired to confirm where she was living, so company counsel could send documents. Every step had been explained internally as protecting the business. Put together, it looked like what it was, a pattern of treating Leah's consent as an obstacle. The settlement took another month. Leah was removed from every company guarantee and obligation she had not personally signed. Monroe House Events bought out her ownership interest over a 3-year payment schedule. Grant resigned from financial control as part of a separate agreement with the bank and investors. There was no dramatic arrest, no ruined life, no public humiliation. Leah did not want any of those things. She wanted her name back. She got it. Richard asked to speak with her privately after the final papers were signed. She said yes. They talked for almost an hour in Monica's office. When Leah came out, she had been crying. I stood but did not move toward her. She walked to me first. He apologized. Do you believe him? Some of it. That's enough for today. She nodded. He said he kept thinking loyalty meant holding the family together. He didn't realize he was holding me in place. I let that settle. Do you want to go home? Leah looked at me. Then she smiled through tears. Yes. On the drive back, she rolled down the window even though it was cold. At a red light, she put her hand on the center console. I covered it with mine. Steady. Not because I had made her steady, because she had spent months choosing, again and again, to trust her own decisions. That distinction mattered to both of us. 2 years after the night she cried over my lease, Leah and I were still in the same brick house. But almost nothing else was the same. The roof had been replaced. The garage bookshelf was finally finished. The paper stars from that first December were in a box labeled Keep in Leah's handwriting. She had her own office downtown for chosen table events. I had been promoted to senior plans reviewer and still spent most of my days explaining to builders why Probably fine was not a structural standard. One Saturday morning, Leah stood in the dining room with paint samples spread across the table. "I hate all of these," she announced. "You chose them. I chose badly. People are allowed to revise." Fair. We were repainting the dining room, the same room where she had signed the lease, the same room where her father had first seen the contracts, the same room where we had eaten cold Thai food and rebuilt trust one uncomfortable sentence at a time. Leah held up 2 paint cards. "Green or blue?" "Green." "Why?" "Because you're going to pick blue no matter what I say." She smiled. "I wanted to know if you knew me." "I know you." Her expression softened. Then she sat down at the table. For a second, I saw the 26-year-old woman from that first night. Red eyes, tight hands, trying not to cry because she had learned tears could be used as evidence against her. I sat across from her. "You okay?" "Yes." I waited. She smiled a little. "Ask again." "Are you okay?" "I'm happy." That answer still surprises me when I remember it. Not because she didn't deserve happiness, because I had once believed safety meant never asking questions someone might not want to answer. Leah taught me something more difficult. You can ask and still respect no. You can care and still leave the decision where it belongs. You can stand beside someone without steering them. And sometimes, when a person is crying in front of you and asking for a promise that makes no sense, the kindest thing is not to demand an explanation. But it may still be worth asking one gentle question. "Do you want me to know why?" I did not ask Leah that night. I wish I had. Not because the answer would have changed my promise. I would have made it anyway. I wish I had asked because she had spent years surrounded by people who assumed they already knew what was best for her. A good question would not have taken her choice away. It might have reminded her sooner that her voice was allowed in the room. Later that morning, while we were arguing about paint, Leah reached across the table and took my hand. "Do you know when I realized I loved you?" she asked. I smiled. Winter lights? No. The moving truck? No. Emergency cheese? Strong contender. Then when? The night you messed up. That was not what I expected. She squeezed my fingers. When you hired that investigator, I thought I had been wrong about you. I thought every safe person eventually decided they knew better. I looked down. I'm still sorry. I know. That's why it mattered. She continued. You didn't defend yourself until I got tired. You didn't tell me I misunderstood. You didn't make me comfort you because you felt guilty. You changed what you did next. I swallowed. That's a low bar. It should be. I laughed softly. Leah's eyes filled with tears. Happy ones, I knew now. But a lot of people still trip over it, she said. She stood, walked around the table and kissed my forehead. Then she held up the blue paint sample. We're choosing this, are we? She narrowed her eyes. I corrected myself. Did you choose this? I chose this. Then blue it is. That promise she asked me to make before moving in never stopped mattering. At first it meant no one could take a box. Then it meant no one could take a decision. Eventually, it became the language of our whole relationship. Did you choose this? Yes. And when the answer was no, we learned to stop. If this story made you think of someone whose choices were ignored because other people claimed to know what was best, tell me what you would have done in my place. And if you believe love should make room for a person's voice instead of speaking over it, like and subscribe for more stories about the quiet decisions that change everything.